Safety 365.
Hello and welcome to Safety 365, where our goal is to help you navigate more safely through your daily activities and understand the importance of taking proactive measures to safeguard yourself. I am your host, Bill Barna. A little bit about me. I'm a 33-year law enforcement officer, a professional security consultant. I'm going to get this out of my mouth eventually. And today we're talking about the topic of bullying and how it's changed over the years to create more of a violent generation that we're witnessing. Joining me today will be my jiu-jitsu coach as well as a longtime friend of mine, Jim Bundy. Jim, thank you for coming in today and talking with us.
Morning. It's my pleasure, sir. Anything I can do to help?
Well, Jim is the owner of Team Bundy Gracie Jiu Jitsu. He is a Gracie Jiu Jitsu black belt, lifelong martial artist, and all-around good guy, unless you're against him on the mat. Jim,
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Well, Jim, you're a father. You've got two children as well, and the topic of bullying has got to mean something to you as well.
Absolutely.
So we're going to kind of delve into that about how bullying is affecting our youth, how it's affecting our adult population, and responsible for some of the things that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. But first, let's get started with our safety question of the day. So, is there any correlation between bullying and suicide rates?
I would think that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, that's somebody would have to think that the more you're bullied, the chances are you're going to feel less about yourself.
Right.
And in fact, the CDC has cited suicide to be the third leading cause among young people, directly related to bullying. It's kind of a sad statistic.
For sure. And anytime you hear statistics like that, it should open people's eyes a little bit wider. You know, it's easy to say people bully, so on and so forth, but when you say, hey, the CDC says this is the third leading cause, that should open everybody's eyes super wide open to the issue.
Yeah, it's especially if you're a parent.
Sure.
I mean, you think about your children, and how they go through day-to-day life.
Sure.
I always wanted my kids just to be enjoying life and not worrying about the serious things.
Sure.
But to hear how things are affecting them in school, in their life.
Sure.
I mean, for every one suicide, there are 100 suicide attempts.
Right.
1 in 20 adolescents experience suicide in a single year.
Sure.
And then this I found shocking. A Yale University study actually found that bullying victims have as much as a 9-time greater chance of suicide than those that weren't bullied.
Absolutely incredible when you think of it that way. And then think about how that spirals into adult life, right? Many people are just messed up adults because they were messed up kids. Exactly. And they couldn't sort through all the garbage.
That's serious trauma in childhood relates so well.
We're all unpacking stuff, as adults, right? Like you got something that happened to you when you were 9, right? And of course, this is, dare I say, my realm of expertise. And I dealt with bullying. That's why I started martial arts in 1987, right? It's like you're uncomfortable. You don't feel like going to school. You don't feel good about yourself. It's like, that's why I wanted to be a martial artist.
You've hit the nail on the head. We've seen a lot of this by kids being uncomfortable about their self-image, body image, and how much that society places on looks and such. Brings us right into our next portion of this episode. You don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So annually, there are about 3.2 million students that are affected by bullying in the United States.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot.
Sure.
I mean, as a child of the 70s.
And that's just the ones that we know about.
Those are the reported ones.
Yes,
right. Yes. So as a child of the 70s, and the youngest child, I was subjected to the normal amounts of bullying. I mean, I had a brother that was 4 years older than me, and I was constantly getting knuckled and pushed around. There was a hierarchy.
Sure.
I mean, it's a sibling hierarchy. But I always just attributed that's just sibling roughhousing.
Right.
That's part of life.
Right.
I guess I never became a victim of bullying because I was used to fighting back, and I always knew to fight back.
Yeah, self-defense mechanisms just built in right in the household.
It was the fight or flight thing. And for me, it was I'm going to fighting. I had a lot of black eyes and bloody noses. I'm not going to lie, but that was how I dealt with it, and I didn't feel I was ever bullied, and it didn't matter how big a man was in front of me.
Sure.
I guess that carried into my law enforcement as well.
Sure.
At 5'8" and 190 pounds, I'm no physical threat to anybody.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, they don't know what they don't know.
Right on. Right on.
I think through training with you, training as a defensive tactics instructor through the police academy, that gave me my self-esteem.
Sure.
That just supported my self-esteem.
Sure.
So.
If I dare interject, it's like the thing that I see, and of course I've been doing this now pretty much my entire life, and I started teaching martial arts, when I was 18, if you can believe that. Like that's been my only source of income since 18 years old, and then I bought my instructor school at 23 years old. So that was in 1999, right?
That's incredible.
So what I can tell you is when we're being bullied, it's because we lack knowledge. Like you said, when you're informed, you know what to do, and that's where real confidence comes from.
Exactly.
Exactly. So it's like, as parents, we all want to prepare our kids to have a good life, right? We try to teach them manners and respect, and we send them to school with paper and pencils and all their equipment. But it shouldn't be, I feel, that is my child going to get bullied? They're going to. They're going to experience bullying.
And it's how they respond to that.
So they need to have the paper and pencil for that, right? Like that's the issue, right? As a lifelong martial arts teacher of kids, the parent's going to be reacting on the back end. And that's the problem we're going to have, as a country, right? Because you don't have a solution, because everybody wants to fix a problem on the outside. And this problem only gets fixed on the inside. When a kid goes to school, if they're relying on a teacher or a punishment program or any of those things, none of that helps you when you're stuck in a bathroom with some kid twice your size.
Exactly. Think about now, Jim, I'm a few years older than you, but
maybe a few.
I got a few chalked in there. When we were in school, think about it. If you were being bullied, it was very short term. You went to school, and you were there at school for your 8 hours a day, and then you went home.
Right.
And it was over until you went back to school.
Sure.
And
you could almost avoid it if you didn't go to school.
Right. The truancy was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look back at the times, I guess it wasn't as big a problem for us because it was on a limited basis. But now bullying is mainstream, and you have to ask yourself, what changed? Well, pretty much technology.
Sure.
We have to blame technology for this. Our kids are under a waterfall of bullying and threat tactics through social media.
And adults are too. And to your point, I think you were kind of bringing that up earlier. It's like cyberbullying is real because I can say anything I want to you on the internet.
I don't have to worry about you hitting me.
Zero consequences.
Right.
At least when you didn't have the technology, if someone was talking bad about you, you only found out from a friend of a friend of a friend. Right?
That's it.
So, and if you didn't hear that, then they were just talking behind your back. But if you found out what they said, then you went and confronted that person.
We had some recess time.
And now we had to talk about this issue, right? So now you don't even have to worry about that stuff. Someone from across the country can bully you. And it becomes a really big, huge problem because people don't, if you don't have your own self-esteem in check, which is getting back to it comes from the inside, if you're not comfortable truly in your own skin, irrelevant of age, and if you never worked on it as a kid, now you don't have the ability to work on it as an adult. You're still backing that all up like we talked about earlier.
Right.
So now when someone puts a comment on your Facebook page or they hit dislike or whatever it is, you're like, oh man. And it bothers you unless you're so confident that you say, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, I have my own self-esteem, and I don't need you to justify who I am or what I stand for.
And when you talk about self-esteem, exactly, that's how you're seeing yourself. What makes you you? When somebody is able to chip away at that, again, through text messages, emails,
Sure.
Facebook posts, just a total barrage.
Sure.
That when you chip away at a stone, you end up with a pebble.
Absolutely. And to your point, that's the bombardment that people are dealing with. Now, my kids are, my daughter's going to be 12 in the summer, my son's going to be 14. So I can see this stuff, right? Like if a kid says something to you at school or does something, well, now they post it all over Snapchat, this, that, and the other. And you think about how we feel about things when we're a kid. It's only like 2 feet in front of you. That's as far as you can see.
Right.
The reality is, as an adult, we know this is going to blow over. So if someone says something to you, in the short term, there's heat. I mean, think about how, when celebrities get in trouble or whatever. Okay, everybody talks about it for a week.
And then it's gone.
And it's gone.
And they're on to the next topic.
If you can weather that storm internally, it's not the end of your world, which you think it is in the moment. So if you can handle the heat for a minute, no one even knows what happened a week after that. But in the kids' world, there is no next week. And that's getting to the point of suicide attempts and all these other things, because when you're being barraged like that and you don't have the self-esteem ability at that age to know that who you are, because you're trying to figure out who you are, you're a little kid. So you don't know who you are. You're relying on these other people to tell you who you are. Now, like you said, it's chip, 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 and now you're this big, and then you're like, well, that must be who I am.
And I think it comes down to a loss of control. You're not controlling the narrative. You're not controlling how people see you.
Sure.
Excuse me.
Sure.
They're going to say what they want about who you are and let everybody believe that instead of who you actually are.
Sure.
When you lose that control, I think psychologically, you go into a spiral.
I agree with that.
So, these kids are on the internet, and nearly 45% of the children active on the internet are affected, and many believe that bullying is the root cause of the school shootings that we're seeing.
I would believe that. We all can kind of have our conjecture on that, but that's a common sense reasoning. If anybody, it's like, okay, it's like we were talking before we came on, air, when you have a disgruntled employee and all those kinds of things, it's like that all gets down to mental capacity and all of that stuff. It's
coping
like
skills.
Like who knows what that person's been through in their life that got them to where they are, that's now what they're going to do.
If you push me far enough into a corner, eventually I can't go backwards.
Right.
I have to come forward, and I have to reclaim my control.
Right on.
I think that's kind of a mainstay. When a person's power has been completely stripped, they've been pushed to their limit.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're either going to subside, a.k.a. suicide,
Sure.
or they're going to push back and they're going to take people with them and show them who's the big dog
Correct.
today.
They literally have been pushed over the edge. For sure.
These things roll off the tongue. Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, Oxford, Michigan, Virginia Tech. It's a shame that we know these and they just keep rolling off the tongue.
Right.
But not just schools.
Sure.
Since Columbine, school shootings, the school shooting on April 20th of 99, there have been 19 fatal church shootings. What's going on here?
Yeah.
You're going into a church,
Right.
and tearing things up. I'm not saying if you're bullied, you're going to become a school shooter,
Sure.
or a mass shooter, but we do see that people that are bullied have poor ability to cope.
Sure.
With the chipping away of their self-esteem.
And if you some people have the decks stacked against them. It's easy for us to say things are a black and white issue, right? Like, how could someone be where they are and do what they did? And there's no excuse for it. However, there is reasons that they are what they are.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse for what they did, but there's reasons that they became who they became. It doesn't excuse the action, but it makes you see the picture different. That person could have been bullied, like you said, in your house. It was just your brother roughing you up. Okay, well, maybe it's your dad roughing you up. Maybe it's your dad and your brother roughing you up. Then you go to school and you're getting roughed up at school. And now, like you said earlier about getting chipped away, okay, that kid's from 4, 5, 6 years old. Now that person's 30. They go into the workplace. They never figured out how to, interact with others. So they're kind of that quieter maybe person.
And maybe even hoping for that new start where nobody knows
Sure.
them.
And now they're seeing the same thing happen again. So at the workplace, nobody talks to them. Maybe they're getting teased, when they're, behind their back at their workplace. And all this starts adding up. And then now you become this evil person because of your life. Now, I'm not suggesting that there aren't just crazy people in the world, because that's true. But I do believe that these kinds of people, and to your point, can be built, into something that shouldn't have been built to begin with.
They've been under the waterfall of attack for a long time, and they
Right.
haven't been able to get out.
Right.
So, I mean, we see all this stuff happening. It kind of brings us right into the next phase of our episode called reaction time. What's being done in our society to reduce the effects of bullying on this younger generation specifically?
Sure.
We look at schools. Typically, they engage in a proactive, broad scope awareness program, saying, this is what bullying is.
Yeah, my kids have talked to me that they're actually going through that right now. My son's doing that currently.
So they're telling them about it.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's internet and library searches, presentations, discussions about bullying, creative writing, writing poems about bullying, artistic works, and classroom meetings. But I think while this is a step in the right direction, there needs to be more. Creating awareness is good, but is Johnny really going to open up in these classroom settings about being bullied?
Well, I think like with anything, when you get schools and this and that involved, that's a broad brush approach. It's dare I say, leaders saying, this is an issue, we need to do something about it, this is our answer. Because when you have a problem that's affecting society, leaders think they need to fix it. So that's going to be what they feel they need to do.
They've got to put a feather in their cap, right?
Right. They have to say, hey, we're doing something. We're doing something to deal with this situation. And while I applaud the effort, because it is a valiant effort, it's not the solution. Here's my humble opinion on this. I think the communication needs to be, because we're not going to reach everybody, but we can reach the good parents. I teach my school has amazing parents in our school.
Well, they're the ones that are involved.
Well, here's what I'm saying. We're not going to get to the parents that aren't. We can't. You can't just go rewire that parent.
Right. You can't write a law on it.
However, there are a lot of really amazing parents. I know that because I see them. They bring their child to my school because they want their child to win. They want their child to be confident and disciplined and focused. So
I think one of the biggest bonuses of your school is, and you do this a lot, is bring a buddy.
Sure.
Bring a buddy. So what if these involved parents and these kids that aren't having the problems bring that one kid that is being bullied?
Sure. They're getting that exposure. I think,
and dare I say, it's free.
Yes.
When they bring a buddy, it's free.
It's true.
Yeah.
And we do community, I do free safety bully classes, very regular at the school. But if we get to a broader approach and say, well, what could people do? What could societies as general do? We're going to need to educate parents on what you can help your kid do so your kid can deal with this better. That was my point about the broad brush. It's like, okay, no, that kid's not going to go to school, sit inside this class, and you're going to fix him or her.
It's kind of like the red flag laws, these mandated reporters. If you see a kid, a teacher, or a police officer,
Sure.
whatever, are mandated reporters, if they feel there's abuse going on there, they have to report that to the authorities.
Sure.
They have to have CPS involved. We kind of need to almost wrap that into, hey, the kid's being bullied. It should be like that kind of red flag
Sure.
for mandated reporting. But before we get too far, I just want to go back to what the schools and such are doing. So they institute this broad scope awareness, and they also do a reactionary approach.
Sure.
Which I'm in total disagreement with, is punishing both the perpetrator and the victim.
And I was literally thinking this.
So
what happens is this has to be a shift in a societal view that says, look, we cannot create a victim society. We don't need a violent society, but we don't need a society that's on the flip of that says, I'm not allowed to stand up for myself.
Right. Well,
Right?
and again, the reactionary approach. We're going to punish the kid that stands up for himself for being bullied.
So I mean, let's put this in perspective. This kid's been pushed over the edge. He's been picked on for X amount of time. He finally gets the courage to do something, right? The most common thing I hear from parents, and like when I do our free bully classes, and I pose this to parents, and they all kind of chuckle that they've probably said something like this, because it's accidental reactionary on the parent side. Kid comes home, finally has the courage to tell the parent that they're getting bullied. Parents infuriated. How could you let that kid talk to you that way? Well, he's twice my size, and he's been picking on me all day. That's what the kid's thinking, but he's not saying that.
Right.
And the parent says, listen, tomorrow when you go to school, I want you to punch that kid square in the nose.
Yeah.
Oh, how about you come do that? Because if somebody at your work, now, of course, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Kids should not talk this way to their parents. But in my head as a kid, I'm thinking, yeah, you go to work and pick out the 340-pound dude that's been picking on you from across the way, and you go punch that dude in the nose. Let me see if you're going to do that.
Well, the tables have turned.
Right?
Yeah,
So
right.
my point is it's bad advice from that standpoint. So if that kid, let's say that kid took that advice, though, and said, all right, my dad said when this kid says something, I got to stop him in his tracks. I got to quit this bullying. I'm going to deck this kid. Well, let's say that he does. Now he gets suspended and he gets thrown out of school for standing his own ground.
Right.
And so it's like anything. When there's a problem, there's no fix. It's a multitude of things. Yes, can the school offer courses? Yes, they should. Should they make more education available? So this is a flatline thing that we all talk about. Yes, we absolutely should. But then we have to think, what are we going to do? What are parents going to need to know? Not the kids. Our job is to guide our children. Right? You're sending a 9-year-old to a bully class at school. That's my job. Right? Thank you, Mr. Teacher.
Right.
I appreciate that you want to help them with that. My child's safety is my responsibility. So we have to take as parents ownership.
Engaging the parents that are not engaged in their child's life is monumental task.
It is. But I can tell you this, there's a lot of very caring parents that don't know what to do. They know they want their child to not be so shy, but they can't give them confidence like a shot. Some kids are just naturally more introverted. It just is what it is. I see it all the time because when a kid comes to my school, quiet, won't say anything, like, oh man, like so shy.
He's gonna be a wallflower.
And the parent, you can see the parent is a very confident parent. And and you can see in that parent's face, I don't understand why my kid's so shy. I want them to be confident because I know what's going to happen to my poor kid. I know what shy kids happens to them in school. He's running the risk of getting more bullying than someone else. So they come to martial arts. See, this is getting back to what do you do?
Well, you're leading me into my next point. We're two birds of a feather here, I think. I think the proactive broad scope awareness is great. I think the reactionary approach needs tweaked quite a bit. But again, we have to rebuild this kid's self-esteem.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? Well, most of these kids don't have tools in their toolbox to fix anything.
No.
So what I believe in is a more layered approach.
Yes.
Let's take your proactive broad scope awareness. That's great. Let's try to engage the parents. But at the same time, let's give the kid something he can do, something that I've learned firsthand, things I don't know, and I engage myself in them, and then I become better. Let's add a layer of self-defense to this kid. Let's lay that into the curriculum of the school even. Let's engage it. Let's have more martial arts interaction. I'm not saying send your kid so he goes and he's fighting in the UFC. Let's give him a tool, something as simple as the UPA, where he can get up off the ground once he's been knocked down. He doesn't have to stay there.
Well, this becomes an interesting conversation, right? Because then you think, where's funding going for programs in your community? What if you had a funded program? Because the reality is, it costs money to do things.
Sure.
So a program like mine, although I feel we do a wonderful job for children, it's not free. And let's be real. I come from a very low economic stature, right? I got all my shoes at Pickway. Every single one. You know, problem with shoes from Pickway?
Yeah.
They don't last very long.
Hey, I wore the Husky jeans.
Yeah, you know, like all my clothes came from Hills and Kmart.
Absolutely.
You know?
Same here.
And so my point being is, it's no knock at someone where they is in a financial state. The reality is the world is what it is. When you're a little bit different, when you don't dress quite the same, or you maybe don't have something nice, it's like you're already getting chips thrown your way from other kids.
You're not the cool kid. You're not in the clique.
You're not in the clique. So then you think, okay, well, yeah, we need to have ways where kids and parents can say, hey, you know what? You should get your kid involved in a martial art program. Great.
But that costs money.
What if I
Right.
am not in the situation? You know, right? We're living in a crazy time right now. There's a lot of people, maybe they lost their job. Who knows? You're like, okay, great. You're telling me I should get my child involved in a self-defense program. Wonderful. That doesn't fit our budget right now. So then to your point of the layering, this is what you do if you're here. This is what you can do. You have a program over here. Oh, you're having a financial, situation? I got it. There's a local program that is funded where these kids can just learn some basic things.
How about, and I'm just going to throw it out there and see if it sticks to the wall, but I was a defensive tactics instructor certified by the state of Ohio through OPATA, and I taught not just at my agency, but I taught multiple agencies around the county. Why couldn't we wrap in the police department's self-defense instructor? Jim, I brought you in when I was with
Multiple times.
The previous department I was with Howland. I brought you in to help me help them. I didn't know it all.
Sure.
You were the expertise there, and I wanted your expertise to sharpen me so I can sharpen them, and together we made it better. Why couldn't the schools do something like that?
Well, I think that what needs to happen is there needs to be a broader scope of a conversation, and people that are in charge and leaders, they need to be open to these discussions.
Absolutely. We've got a big turn of candidates here in this next session. I see a lot of people running for state rep and senator, and different things going on just in our small community.
Sure.
This may be the conversation we have with them to try and get some legislation started.
Sure. Say, listen, do we care about our kids and how they grow up? Everybody says yes. Let's start attacking the things that we know kids are having problems with, and let's have an honest conversation about what we can do about it. Because if you're just slapping a class into a schoolroom and going, hey, you know what, guys, look, we did something. That's not gonna cut it. These conversations like you and I are having, I believe a lot of people have them, and especially people that do things like we do. We can't figure out why no one else is thinking it.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense to us.
Right.
However, we need to talk to people so they hear us. And they need to want to talk to people like us. Because when you're outside of what we do, someone could easily say, right? And I have had parents ask me this. This is a legitimate question. Hey, Mr. Bundy, I'm going to bring my child to your martial arts school, but I do not want my child being a bully. I do not want them learning these techniques and hitting his sister at home. I do not want my child learning these techniques and going to school. So what educators and people in leadership need to hear is from quality teachers that know what they're doing and know that it's about don't get in a fight, protect yourself, not start one. They need to hear that, because I'm going to think many of them might be in that camp. Like, oh, yeah, sure. Show this kid who's already showing violent tendencies how to arm lock another kid. Great idea.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
Right. Where we need to see the conversation go is, no, like a good martial arts teacher is teaching character and self-defense and
that's-
all of those
and that's
things.
it. And I will give credit where credit is due. As a student of yours, I mean, the best thing in there was it was teamwork. It was
Sure.
always hands up. Show I'm not here to hurt you.
Right.
These hands are to defend myself. Please go away.
Sure.
But if you come my way, I will have to use
Right.
these. And that's the mentality we have to get across.
Sure. If somebody could see a child that's come to any good martial arts program, I can only speak for mine right now, but I've visited many schools in my day. And if it's a good program, you just watch how that kid stands. I ask parents all the time when they enroll their kid if their kid's shy. If you had to say 1 to 10, what's my confidence level? Oh my gosh, Mr. Bundy, you're a 12. You didn't meet me when I was 11.
Well, you worked your way towards
This is
it, right?
built.
Right.
I built this.
And it was a choice you had to make.
I built this.
Yes.
And if I can build it, your child can build it. Put him in the right environment, put her in the right environment, give him the right skills, give him the right tools, because many fights are avoided just by how I look you in the eye.
Absolutely.
If I stand tall, because if I know I can physically defend myself, whether I'm a woman, whether I'm a child, or I'm a smaller person, whatever it is, I'm getting a little older. When I feel that I can do something, I'm empowered. And this is the conversation people need to hear.
And that's exactly
When I'm empowered,
That's exactly the
I stand
stance.
up, I talk different, I walk different, and people typically don't pick on me. Now, someone can say, well, Jim,
Now,
you're a
for
big guy.
those of you who don't know Jim Bundy, he's like 6'3", 235, 240. I don't know.
Right.
He's a big man.
Right.
I've had him on top of me many times, and all I could do was pray and cry a little. But no, nobody is going to push Jim Bundy around if you look at him physically.
But here's what I would say to that, though. Giants attract giants.
Oh, I want to be the guy that beat that guy.
Well, yeah, but what I'm going with is this. When I was in my competitive days, I didn't fight 5'2" dudes, bro. Like, giants get other giants.
Right.
And I tell the bigger guys that come to my class, yeah, you might be the biggest guy in this room. Now, if a smaller guy's picking on you on the outside, he's either crazy or armed or both. He feels he can win. So let's take him off the table. The guy that sees you is going to be another guy that feels he can crush you, and he ain't going to be small. So it's all relative.
It is relative.
And
That
how
is
you talk
true.
and walk and act, that affects things.
Again, it's about rebuilding that self-esteem.
Rebuilding it.
Putting tools in a toolbox. And there's a quote I like, never bend your head, hold it high, and look the world straight in the eye.
Sure.
And if we can get that mindset into these kids today, we'll have less problems tomorrow. I've got to roll into our next portion here. It's called our Safety 365 recap. Basically, just letting everybody know that bullying is a nationally recognized problem that affects 3.2 million students annually. 1 in 20 of adolescents experience suicide in a single year. And bullying creates a decrease in self-esteem, mental health, and the ability to utilize normal coping mechanisms. A depleted self-esteem and hopelessness are attributed to the rise in school shootings, which is sadly what we're witnessing today. Jim, I got to thank you for being here. I think we've touched on a lot of different topics. We've started some fires that hopefully we can fan the flames and take them to people of a higher stature than us that may be able to help remedy this. As always, I appreciate your cooperation. I will say, planning ahead, our next episode, we are going to be talking about workplace violence. Obviously, that rolls right with what we're talking about today. In conclusion, I just want to give a special thanks to our show sponsor, Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, providing safety and security to homes, schools, churches, and business locations across 42 states in the United States and internationally in 6 countries. Visit them at www.bolostick.com. I would also like to give a special shout out to Trumbull Career and Technical Center. They do a wonderful job with their multimedia group and with their other programs that they have going on. Great people. If you're a parent, you definitely need to check them out. For Safety 365, I'm Bill Barna, reminding you to be aware, be proactive, and stay safe.